linked off at I was looking at linked off at was it Gad?
We was going by I think we went by the
From Genesis 30.
yeah.
The next one, okay, yeah, Gad is at verse 11. You want to start there?
Yeah. Well, I think we finished there actually.
Next one is Asher.
Alright, you can read that. Are you ready?
That's gonna be
Could you go
verse
on?
13. All right, shalom, shalom. Once again, we're back to do another lesson on the 12 tribes. I believe last time we left off on verse 13, which would be the tribe of Asher, the birth of the tribe of Asher. Okay, first and foremost, I'm going to give all praise, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim, Rakak, Kodash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders, a great millstone for teaching us his truth. And we'll go ahead and start with verse 13, this Genesis chapter 30, verse 13. And it says, and Leah said, happy am I, for the daughters will call me blessed. And she called his name Asher. Okay. This is Asher came from Leah's maid, Zilpah. Okay, so the concubine actually birthed Asher on behalf of Leah. Okay, and it says, call me blessed. Right, so it says, happy am I, for the daughters will call me blessed. And they called his name Asher. Okay, now Asher, we teach that is the tribe of, you go down there to South America. I believe it's from Brazil, Argentina, Colombia. Yep, okay.
Colombia to Uruguay.
Yep, so those are those
which would be, you can name some continents there to get an understanding. So
yeah.
Brazil is there. The brother just mentioned that.
All around the what is that? The western half of South America. Okay, you can even go down into Chile. So let's go over here.
Also, Asher has the biggest rainforest. One of the biggest. It's the first biggest rainforest out of all rainforests. That Amazon rainforest. That's the biggest one. That's in Brazil. Which a fun fact. I was looking at a documentary the other day about Brazil and those who live in the Amazon rainforest. They eat ants and they also eat turtles, which that's all.
Yeah.
But that's what Asher be doing there.
You get a lot of those Amazonian, those people down there, they do a lot of weird shit with their food, man. Okay, they grow up in forests and shit like that. Actually, fun fact is that the Amazonian basin, okay, is one of the largest areas of land that has been not explored by Esau. Okay, so if you actually go down there, there's a large portion of the Amazonian basin, which is about the size of I believe it's about the size of Spain, that has not been touched by Esau. Okay, but Esau, he's gonna try to get his way in there somehow, which is why we need the Lord to come back. But if we hop over
Once again, Asher is Ashar in the Hebrew. It means happy. There's some happy people down there. And what else? Oh yeah, well, I know you got that, but I'm gonna get this verse.
Yep.
Genesis 49 and verse 20. Out of Asher his bread shall be fat, and he shall yield royal dainties. You see his that whole blessing there alone. He shall yield royal. His bread shall be fat. They have some of the most. They produce some of the most corn down there. A couple years back, I don't know how it is now, but yeah, they have so much corn down there. They have this. There's a certain gas that runs out of corn. I don't know if you know it. Ethanol,
yep.
Man. They just have used that. They get their gas for free down there, actually. So the transportation down there is free.
Yep.
and it says he shall yield royal dainties. That goes into all the certain exotic animals that they have down there in those rainforests, and it goes into a lot of those fruits, those exotic, rich, luxurious fruits. Rich people buy a lot of the fruit. These rich people buy is from straight up out of from Brazil down there, Asher.
Mm-hmm.
So that's royal dainties there. I got one more thing about that in this commentary.
Mm-hmm.
This commentary, then you can get. It says right here about the Asher's blessing. Genesis 49:20. The commentator says the brief words to Asher were happy and hopeful. Going back once again to the name Asher, his blessing was a happy blessing. Fits his name. Happy is he.
That's right.
Yeah.
And like you said, it said his bread would be fat. And if you think about what's going on down there in the Amazon, that soil down there is the richest soil on the earth. There was an actual study down there. There were some archaeologists went down there and they found that there was over 2,000-year-old earth that had more what is it called it's called black, they call it black dirt, okay, where the soil is so nutrient rich that it's not like the soil you get up here in America, okay, when you have large scale industrialized farming where Esau just tills the soil over and over and over again, and they destroy the ecosystem the way they farm. But down there in the Amazon, they were actually found that the people down there, they were actually cultivating and using and engineering the rainforest down there, okay? So that's one of the reasons why they can grow so much corn and food down there, right? It says,
add to that.
Go ahead.
Because that's true what the brother just said. It just reminded me of that documentary too. I almost forgot about that. How they were talking about how they produce some of the most, it's a certain fruit called acai, A-C-A-I. I'm not pronouncing it correctly.
Or acai or
Acai, yeah.
Acai, yeah.
They produce some of the most acai down there. That you can even eat. Instead of like using ketchup, they use acai down there for like fries and stuff.
Yep.
You can like the guy even said that you can like grow one of the fruits. Going back to the house of rich, that soil will grow it on the ground and it'll grow.
Yeah, you can just throw seeds down there on the Amazonian floor, right? That's why it says his bread shall be fat, right? His bread being fat means there's an abundance of nutrient-rich, dense foods. Unlike here in America, our vegetables, this is all fake, right? We got nothing but fake GMO modified foods, which is a sin, by the way, okay? And down there, like I said, they haven't been touched by Esau. A lot of that land hasn't been touched by Esau, which is why it's so rich, right? Let me go back to verse 14.
Yep.
Genesis 30 and 14, it says, and Reuben went in the days of wheat harvest and found mandrakes. For people that don't know, I'm just going to look up what mandrakes are, okay, because it's actually I believe it's a plant that increases fertility. Mandrakes are refers to the root of a plant belong to the genus Mandroga, or sometimes the plants themselves. These plants are known for their thick, often branched roots, and are native to the Mediterranean, region. Mandrake roots have been used historically for various purposes, including medical and magical practices. I believe they were used at the time. Were used for fertility. In ancient times, mandrakes were believed to possess properties that could enhance fertility, particularly in women. Now, if you go down, if you go back to what was going on during this time, the title of this chapter is Rachel is envious of Leah because she was having all them children, and so what happened, Reuben went out and found some mandrakes, which was believed to increase fertility. So that's where this is picking up. And it says, Reuben went in the days of wheat harvest and found mandrakes in the field and brought them unto his mother Leah. Then Rachel said to Leah, give me, I pray thee, of thy son's mandrakes. And she said unto her, it is a small matter that thou hast taken. It is a small matter that thou hast taken my husband. And wouldest thou take away my son's mandrakes also? And Rachel said, therefore he shall lie with thee tonight for my son's mandrakes. Okay, because remember, like a man is supposed to, right? Jacob had his wives on rotation. Okay, that's the way it's supposed to be. These women today, they're not gonna get down with that. But like the first day it was Leah, the next day it was Rachel, the next day it was Zilpah, right? And the next day it was Bilhah. So it was actually supposed to be Rachel's day, but in what she did was she traded the mandrakes for Leah to be able to lie, right, with Jacob in Jacob's bed that night. Okay, and I've actually heard a Christian talk about that and say that was prostitution. Okay, which we know that Christians don't know what the fuck's going on, so we'll just leave it to the experts. All right, and it says, therefore shall he lie with thee tonight for thy son's mandrakes. And Jacob came out of the field in the evening, and Leah went out to meet him and said, thou must come in unto me, for surely I have hired thee with my son's mandrakes. And he lay with her that night. See, that's the part where Christians will say that they were going off because she was prostituting out Jacob, which, doesn't make any sense. Okay, these two were just negotiating a deal because it was actually supposed to be Rachel's night, right? So they would work together and come up with an arrangement that allowed Jacob to go into Leah. Okay, and as a result of this, this is the birth of Issachar, I believe. We talked about Issachar yesterday at camp. I don't think we
had a good one.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, we want past. You guys still got to get the one in Deuteronomy.
Oh, yeah. Let's go there.
And I got 33. This one too. I'll get this right.
For Asher.
I got this one. I got to read this one.
Go ahead.
This is out of Asher. His bread shall be fat. So it said his bread shall be fat. Another word for fat there instead of fat would be rich. His bread shall be rich. He shall use royal dainties. And actually, Asher here once again you got to pull the map up to Asher was
You want his land location?
Yeah, this is Joshua 19. I'm gonna start at 24 here. It says, and the fifth lot came out of the tribe of the children of Asher according to their families, and the border was Helkath and Halai, and Betan and Akseph, and Alamelech and Amad and Mishael, and reacheth to Carmel westward of Shiloh, Libnath, and turneth toward the sunrising of Beth Dagon, and reaches to Zebulun and to the valley of Jephthah El toward the north side of Beth and Mech and the Isle. All these words, and goeth out of Kabul on the left hand, and Hebron and Rehob and Hamath and Canaan, even unto the great Zidon, and then the coast turneth to Ramah and to the strong city of Tyre, and the coast turneth to Hosah, and the outgoings thereof are at the sea from the coast of Agzeb unto Yaumah, also in Aptek and Rehob, 22 cities with their villages. That's a lot of cities. This is the inheritance of the tribe of the children of Asher according to their families, these cities with their villages.
And here's their territory right here. It's in north. It's probably the most north territory in the land at that time. Okay, bumping right up against Lebanon, right? It's over there on the coast, right on the Mediterranean. Okay, you have Tyre, Akcho, Kabul, like he said, bumping into Zebulun and Naphtali, right next door neighbors to Asher. So if you go onto the coast north of West Manasseh, okay, the half tribe of Manasseh, and west of Naphtali and Zebulun, that's the territory of Asher, okay.
It says here in Judges 1 and 28, and it came to pass when Israel was strong that they put the Canaanites to tribute and did not utterly drive them out. Neither did Ephraim drive out the Canaanites that dwelt in Gezer, but the Canaanites dwelt in Gezer among them. Neither did Zebulun drive out the inhabitants of Kitron, nor the inhabitants of Nahal, but the Canaanites dwelt among them and became tributaries. Neither did Asher drive out the inhabitants of Akkod, nor the inhabitants of Zidon, nor of Alab, nor of Akzib, nor of Helba, nor of Apik, nor of Rehob. But the Asherites dwelt among the Canaanites, the inhabitants of the land, for they did not drive them out, which I believe they were supposed to drive them out, if I'm not mistaken. So they went off there. And then here's the maps for y'all. Let's see, Asher. That's a pretty large, wide piece of land. It reminds me of the Incas. When you look at it. It's weird to look at it here. That's a wide. That's like just like how Asher came here and toward the Americas and got that the Inca Empire was the largest empire of the southern Americas. I believe Gad had the first largest, I think, one of the tribes of Gad, one of those Apache tribes or whatever.
Yep. Let's go into this is
We're gonna get the Deuteronomy.
Yep, Deuteronomy 33 and 24. It says, and of Asher he said, let Asher be blessed with children. Okay, if you know anything about Amazonian, Brazilians, Colombians, those women tend to be very fertile. Okay, those women tend to be known for having a lot of kids, man. And it says, let Asher be blessed with children, let him be acceptable to his brethren, and let him dip his foot in oil. And that's very significant because down there in Brazil, there's actually a large underground storage of oil. Okay, Brazil is actually known for having a lot of oil. And I actually just looked up in the etymology, okay, the name Brazil, okay, and it says Brazil wood, name of a type of redwood in East India, an East Indian tree used for making dye, or in modern times known as sapin wood or redwood.
What type of oil was that? Yeah. Olive oil or gas
no,
oil?
they have actual crude oil in Brazil. Yep, they're known for that. And it says
Probably going into olive oil too.
Yeah. From medieval Latin Brazilian, Old French Brasil, which probably related to breeze, embers, okay, and like in form a Germanic source, to boil, bubble, right? Because boiling and bubbling, that's that crude oil refinement process. Burn in so-called resemblance the color of a glowing ember. Okay. Yeah.
It said let Asher be blessed with children too. So Asher was blessed with lots of children, just similar to Ephraim. It's just when you think about it, though, you know, Ephraim would be like we spoke to the brother yesterday about how the tribes, how they got specific traits and omens that dude didn't understand. Like even with Asher too, you can get that confused with Ephraim and make that argument. Oh well, Asher also has. It says Asher will be blessed with children. How are we gonna know the difference between Ephraim and Asher?
Yep.
Let him be acceptable to his brethren. That means like acceptable to his brethren. That can go into like basically like him getting along with the tribes.
Yeah, I believe of all the tribes, it's those Colombians, Uruguayans, Brazilians, you know, some of those Argentinians, some of those Chileans. They're not involved in a lot of this tribal warfare. You know, there was a lot of fighting going on between Zebulun and Issachar at the time, and there was a lot of fighting going on between Gad and Reuben and intertribal fighting and wars and stuff like that. But Asher, for the most part, right? For the most part, they seem to be clear of that. You don't really hear about a fucking Chilean, fucking hating on somebody, And then like it says, he shall dip his foot in oil. The root word of Brazil is braise, which means to burn. Okay, to burn, like you when you take crude oil out of the ground, you find it into gasoline, or you find it into other petroleum products, right? And what do you do with that? You burn it. Okay, so yeah, like I said, Brazil is actually in the Amazonian basin. Definitely has one of the largest untapped oil reserves in the world.
Okay. Asher?
Yeah.
Because you can also get that confused with Issachar too. Like it says Issachar, right? So then think Issachar. And one of these we're gonna read it.
Yeah, I think that's the next one.
This is more about Asher here. Still, Job 29:6. When I washed my steps with butter, and the rock poured me out rivers of oil. Job 29:6. Let me see here. Or it can also say my steps were bathed with butter, and the rock poured me out rivers of oil.
Yeah.
So just going into how the scriptures talk about how rich oil is. Oil is a resource. If you have a lot of that, you're really rich. Money, Esau makes you think money is paper money.
Right.
Those blessings that the Lord gave to His people here in that land, and in the lands here, those are the real riches, where the real money is.
Yep. Also, there's more on verse 25 about Asher. It says, "Thy shoes shall be iron and brass, and thy days, so shall thy strength be." Meaning that they're very strong tribes. I got just a quick, just for the curiosity. Go ahead.
Also, thy shoes shall be iron, which the water point. I didn't see that. Thy shoes shall be iron and brass. That's a lot of those minerals.
Yep.
Rich.
I was about to look that up.
Rich, precious metals, iron, brass, and as thy days, so shall thy strength be. Oh yeah, in that documentary too, it was showed an old man, an 80-year-old man climbing up a tree.
Yeah.
Taller than this one, like climbing all the way up there to pull out a kaisi.
I think other than Japan, the Amazonian basin has some of the most. It's the largest population of centurions, or what do they call those people that live to 100?
Primitive tribes.
Yeah, one of those tribes down there. They live longer. They actually live to over 100 more than any other peoples in the world, other than Japan.
Yeah, because they say all he eats is coconuts, fish, and akaisi.
Yep, that's right. And I just typed in, does Brazil have large iron deposits? It says yes. Brazil has large iron ore deposits and is a major producer and exporter of iron ore. It ranks second globally in both iron ore reserves and production. The country's iron ore production is heavily concentrated in the states of Minas Gerais, and Pará, with Vale being the largest iron ore producer in Brazil. So there you go. That's why it says, what does it say? Thy shoes, which is your feet, where you put your feet down, right? Thy shoes shall be iron. So everywhere they walk in Brazil, under their feet is oil and iron and minerals, rich dirt, rich earth, right? So that's why those blessings are placed on the tribe of Asher, because of the land that they receive, right?
I got this one too. Precept for that. Deuteronomy 8 and 7-8. We'll see where we go. For the Lord thy God bringeth thee into a good land, a land of brooks of water. It says here in the verse 7. Let me see. Okay, let's just keep going. A land of brooks and of water, of fountains and depths that spring out of valleys and hills. So water that just pops out.
What's one of the largest rivers in the world? The Amazonian River, right? You know?
And the land that they had too, in the ancient world too, they had these things as well.
Yep.
A land of wheat and barley, and vines and fig trees and pomegranates, a land of olive oil and honey. A land, oh, you think about the story in 2 Samuel, 1 Samuel, I forgot, where Saul and his son Jonathan, they went into a forest full of honey. A land where thou shalt eat bread without scarceness. Thou shalt not lack anything in it. A land whose stones are iron, and out of whose hills thou mayest dig brass. When thou hast eaten and art full, then thou shalt bless the Yahweh thy God for the good land which he hath given thee. It says, come. You had something about that?
Yeah, no, I was just going into all those mineral deposits they got down there. I'm surprised that actually Esau hasn't really been able to get his hands. Esau's down there, right? But I'm surprised that he hasn't completely taken over that Amazonian basin.
I got Deuteronomy 11:9, and that ye may prolong your days in the land which the Lord sware unto your fathers to give unto them and to their seed, a land that floweth with milk and honey.
Yeah.
For the land where thou goest in to possess is not as the land of Egypt, from whence he came out, where thou sowest thy seed and waterest it with thy foot, as a garden of herbs. But the land where ye go to possess it is a land of hills and valleys, and drinketh water of the rain of heaven. A land which the Lord thy God careth, for the eyes of the Lord thy God are always upon it, from the beginning of the year even unto the end of the year. So that's the blessings once again. We can go into many scriptures, but we got to move on.
All right, let's go to Issachar here. I'll start back at 14, where it says,
oh shoot.
You got it.
Hold on, let me make some space in this.
Yeah, go ahead.
How many tribes do we got left?
It's Issachar. He's Issachar, Zebulun,
Benjamin, I think, and Ephraim.
Yeah. It's Issachar, Zebulun, Joseph.
You trying to get home at a certain time?
No, we can finish it. Yeah. And, you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll start at first Genesis 30 and 14. It says, and Reuben went in the days of wheat harvest and found mandrakes, which were used for fertility back then, in a field, and brought them to his mother Leah. Then Rachel said to Leah, give me, I pray thee, of thy son's mandrakes. And she said unto her, it is a small matter that thou hast taken my husband, and wouldest thou take away my son's mandrakes also? And Rachel said, therefore he shall lie with thee tonight for thy son's mandrakes. And Jacob came out of the field in the evening, and Leah went out to meet him, and said, thou must come in unto me, for surely I have hired thee with my son's mandrakes. And he lay with her that night. And Yahweh hearkened unto Leah, and she conceived and bare Jacob a fifth son. And Leah said, Yahweh hath given me my hire, because I have given my maiden to my husband. And she called his name Issachar, which in the Hebrew is Ishashkar. Okay, and Leah conceived again and bare Jacob. Okay, we'll stop right there and go into Issachar. So Issachar's name means he is hired. Okay, right here where it says, Leah said, God hath given me my hire. That's what Issachar's name means. And then we can go into Genesis 49.
I got that one.
Go ahead.
You can get the one to
Go ahead.
All right, it's Genesis 49 and 14. Issachar is a strong ass, couching down between two burdens. Couching down between two burdens, that can go into how he's in between the Southern Americas and then North Americas. Couching down between two burdens. Also going into how basically today how Issachar can't belong in his land, and then he can't belong in North America's lands. Couching down between two burdens. and he saw that the rest, also because Issachar be working too much.
Okay.
So he's in between working and trying to rest. Issachar likes resting, but he's crouching down between two burdens, and he saw that the rest was good. And the land that it was pleasant. That's the land of Mexico today. In the ancient land they also had back then.
Yep.
And bowed his shoulder to bear, going to back then how the Philistines would conquer Israel, then they'll have to, and also today how Esau took the land, the Spaniards, also Esau today, and became a servant unto tribute. So now they don't own much of that land now. Really the farm too. That's why Zapata did his rebellion, because the rich were taking all the land and the poor was that the poor used to work on.
Mm.
I got some here in the comments. I'll actually get
Deuteronomy 33 and 18. It says, and of Zebulun he said, rejoice Zebulun in thy going out, and Issachar in thy tents. Okay, not very much on Issachar in Deuteronomy 33, but Issachar's dwelling place, which, like we said, Mexico is a very pleasant place. It's a very sunny, warm, borderline tropical place. I believe Guatemala, which is the tribe of Zebulun, I believe they're a little bit more tropic, but they're right next to each other, so they're both known for being very pleasant places to live.
Read that one again.
It says, and of Zebulun he said, rejoice Zebulun in thy going out, and Issachar in thy tents.
And that was also going into how back in the ancient world when it says Issachar in thy tents, right?
Yep.
That was going to how Zebulun would always visit Issachar. You really won't see Issachar trying to go and meet Zebulun. Even today, most Issacharites ain't gonna go down there to Guatemala. That they would rather stay in their own land. And a lot of Guatemalans will go also to Mexico and also past Mexico to get to America.
Mm.
So that's why it says Issachar in thy tents. And when in the ancient world too, when the Aztecs and Mayans existed, Issachar would have sacrifices, ceremonial rituals where Mayans would come over and sacrifice with them. And in the ancient world too, I imagine Issachar would. It says, does it have more on there?
No, that was the only thing on Issachar. I was gonna go into
You gotta read Zebulun too, because he goes with Zebulun.
Zebulun, he said, rejoice Zebulun in thy going out.
Does that say it?
Yeah, that's it. And then it says in thy going out, and Issachar in thy tents. They shall call the people unto the mountain there, and they shall offer sacrifices of righteousness.
Yeah, back then it was in righteousness in ancient Israel.
And then when they got over here and was the Mayans and Aztecs, what were they doing? They were sacrificing in wickedness. Okay? There was you see the movie when they would fucking you see the movie when the dude, that was Apocalypto, wasn't it? Yeah. When he fucking put the people on the fucking table and then they would fucking cut the heart out and shit. That shit was brutal, man. Like, what the fuck? But then they came over here and was going off, right? And they had warriors. If that main character in that movie, his name was Jaguar Paw or something like that, Panther Paw. And the Aztecs were known for having warriors known as Jaguar warriors, okay? And they were actually very fierce, mighty warriors back in the day when they would fight wars when Mayans and Aztecs would actually fight wars against each other, along with other tribes such as the Incas and some of the Native American tribes. It says, they shall call people unto the mountain, therefore they shall offer sacrifices, for they shall suck out the abundance of the seas and of treasures hid in the sand. Mexico.
What verse was that?
That was verse 19. Mexico is I believe they are the largest North or Central American country with the largest silver deposits in the world. Let me see this.
What was the one about Issachar there that you read?
It says Issachar.
What verse is that? Just give me the verse.
18 and 19.
In the commentary here it reads, the tribe of Zebulun will be created by the seas and their shores were God's appointed place for the tribe's prosperity. Because when you got the most successful city in the states, the capitals were always states that was near the seashore. Like you could go into the Roman Empire, you go into the Leptis Magna city in Africa, Carthage back in that time too. They were near seashores, seacoast cities. Florida, New York, the Panama Canal. That's why President Trump wants the Panama Canal.
Yep. Fact here about Mexico, it says Mexico is exceptionally rich in silver deposits and is the world's leading producer of silver, which is real money. When you go back to the land, under King Solomon, our money was gold and silver, which was basically the whole world used gold and silver as money. That's real money, okay? And it's actually very it's very valuable. It's actually more valuable than gold, but the banking families, they actually manipulate the silver prices, okay, through paper trading, right? And they in Mexico's silver deposits, I believe, are under the control of the little hats, which is why Mexico is not allowed to mine certain parts of their land, okay? So it actually says Mexico is exceptionally rich in silver deposits and is the world's leading producer of silver. The country's silver mining history spans centuries, with major silver mines concentrated in the states like Zacatecas, Durango, Chihuahua, and Sonar. Mexico's silver production continues to be a significant part of its economy and major contributor to the global silver market. When shit goes down, okay, when this dollar goes down and crashes, which we know that's coming, and Jacob's trouble comes, a lot of people are going to flee for Mexico. It's actually what's happening now is actually going to be the opposite. You got all these people coming up here from Mexico, right? But during Jacob's trouble, I believe, and I speak as a man, but I believe that a lot of people are going to try to run into Mexico because America's going to be going, down shit, man. Okay? So,
I have a bit more.
Go ahead.
I think it was.
I was going to go to Joshua 19.
What's that about?
Issachar's inheritance.
Okay. Issachar is also, by the way, in the Hebrew, it's Yashashkar, which means he is hired once again. You got it.
Joshua 19 and 17, it says, "And the fourth lot came out to Issachar for the children of Issachar according to their families, and their border was toward." I gotta go to the map real quick.
Oh yeah, and by the way, it said in this commentary in 49:14 about Issachar once again, he would bear his shoulder to tribute. The commentary reads, "Jacob's words to Issachar portend a heavy enslavement, following a time of plenty." And it just makes sense. So that's what that blessing is going back into once again. How Issachar was going to go have plenty, but then get cursed.
That's right.
Oh yeah. We gotta get. You still gotta finish that.
Yep, the land. It says, "And their border was towards Jezreel, and Cheshaloth, and Shinnom, and Haparam, and Cheyenne, and Anaharath, and Rabith, and Kishan, and Abez, and Rameth, and Egnam, and En-Haba, and Beth Pazez, and the coast, Richeth to Tabor, and Shahazim to Beth Shamesh, and the outgoings of their border were at Jordan, 16 cities with their villages. This is the inheritance of the tribe of the children of Issachar according to their families, the cities and their villages." Okay, and this Issachar is right in the middle, okay, right on the Jordan River. If people can see, let's see if they can see that. Okay. Tribe of Issachar is right there in the middle, that green area, green territory, right on the Jordan River. It's actually a smaller plot, Okay, that's because they're they're pretty much landlocked inside of all the other tribes. Okay.
Yeah, because when you go into Issachar, that land, if you can get a preset, I just remember that. How go into how Issachar knew the tongues. You can break that down. Yeah, when I look at the land too, it was just right in between, damn near all surrounding the Northern Kingdom. So that's those two burdens right there. Because when you think about it, that can also go into how usually when a person immigrant comes here to America, you think about a Mexican. It goes into how he really doesn't know English, but you know he can work though. But that's two burdens. Like,
And then a lot of times they actually have multiple jobs, right? Mexicans will work, you know, even the little kids will get off school and then go to work with their dad or whatever. That's in First Chronicles. I'll get to it. First Chronicles. Look, chapter 12. Go ahead, what were you saying?
Yeah, Issachar was some deadly warriors, man. When you go back into it, how they use their weapons with one of the stones. They actually would use a stone as a blade. It was called obsidian.
Yep, I was gonna say that's no joke, man.
And that's sharper than regular steel.
Yep, sharper than steel. Obsidian is that rock. It's a volcanic rock, and they would chip it and it would turn it into arrowheads, knives, different blades, different type blades, and that shit will cut somebody real quick. This is First Chronicles chapter 12 verse 32, and it says, "And of the children of Issachar, which were men that had understanding of the times, to know what Israel ought to do, the heads of them were 200, and all their brethren were at their commandment." What's that? What was that? One ancient Aztec or ancient Mayan calendar where everybody was going like, "Oh, 2012 is gonna be the end of the world." That was Issachar right there. They made that calendar. What was that calendar called? The Mayan calendar? It was an ancient Mayan calendar. It was either Mayans or the Aztecs that made that calendar.
They both were known to.
Yeah.
But really, Issachar is the one that takes that.
Yeah, and they had that calendar up, and it said that basically they broke it down to around the year 2012 something was gonna happen. They actually made movies about it. There's a movie called 2012, which was about that prediction from Issachar about the world ending in around 2012.
It's very close.
I was about to say, if you think about it, what was 2025? What was that? 12 years ago? That's almost within a decade. They pretty much got the return of Yahweh Shai. Okay, so we believe that, Lord will, you know. So that's not something to scoff at. That's actually very accurate, considering the technology they had at the time. You know, able to read the stars. And I believe, wasn't it Issachar when the northern tribes came over here after the Assyrian captivity? It wasn't Issachar that was navigating, using the stars to come over, use the ships to come over here. You know?
Yeah, when Israel needed to know if it was the right time to harvest something or whatever, they go to Issachar.
That's right.
And is there more down there? Because I know that.
The next one, it says, their brethren were at their commandment of Zebulun, such as went forth to battle. There goes those Mayan warriors, expert in war, with all instruments of war, like you were saying, those obsidian blades, 50,000, which could keep rank. They were not of double heart, which means they weren't afraid. They weren't second guessing themselves. They were straight up warriors. You know, they were like, you know, we're gonna get into this war and we're gonna, you know, take the enemy out.
When you go into Judges, the 6th chapter.
Yeah, we can get that actually.
It mentioned how they went to war when Deborah, at the time of Deborah, when she went and called the tribes, commanded for this one man, commanded to go gather the tribes together. Issachar wasn't hesitant. He went. Reuben was one of the tribes that chose to stay. They was comfortable, basically. So they chose to stay.
That's right.
But what chapter was that you just read?
That was 1 Chronicles 12 and 32.
Okay,
Let's go to. Yep, Judges 5 and 15. It says, and the princes of Issachar were with Deborah, even Issachar, and also Barak. He was sent on foot into the valley for the divisions of Reuben. There were great thoughts of heart. Yeah, Reuben wasn't trying to get involved, you know. Issachar was with him though. Issachar was with Barak. This is when Deborah needed the help of Barak. She said, you need to go fight. And Barak says, I'm not going unless you go, you know. So
get the part where it just mentions
Zebulon.
Issachar.
Yeah. Issachar, it says the princes of Issachar were with Deborah. Let me start up a little bit. It says, out of Ephraim was there a root of them against Amalek. After thee, Benjamin, among thy people, out of Mechar came down governors, and out of Zebulun they that handled the pen of the writer. And the princes of Issachar were with Deborah, even Issachar, and also Barak, and he was sent on foot into the valley for the divisions of Reuben. There were great thoughts of heart. If you go down to verse 18, it says Zebulun and Naphtali were a people that jeoparded their lives unto the death in the high places of the field. Zebulun, okay, and Naphtali, they were actually in the heats of the battle. Okay, they were actually in the mix. What does Naphtali? It says he wrestling. He's known for wrestling, right? Naphtali, and then Zebulun had them warriors that were not double-minded. Okay, so it says Zebulun and Naphtali were a people that jeoparded their lives. They put their lives in jeopardy into the death in the high places of the field. Okay.
I got something here.
Go ahead.
Deuteronomy 33 and verse the verse the brother got was in verse
You want Deuteronomy 33 for Issachar?
Yeah.
That's
actually no.
18 and 19.
1 Chronicles 12, I mean. So
Yeah, 12 and 32.
The brother got that one once again. When you go on down though, it mentions verse 38. All these men of war that could keep rank came with a perfect heart to Hebron to make David king over all Israel, and all the rest also of Israel were of one heart to make David a king. And there they were with David 3 days eating and drinking, for their brethren had prepared for them. Moreover, they that were nigh them, even unto Issachar and Zebulun and Naphtali, brought bread on asses and on camels, and on mules, and on oxen, and meats, meal, cakes of figs, and bunches of raisins, and wine, and oil, and oxen, and sheep abundantly. For there was joy in Israel abundantly. Notice how it mentions all these things abundantly, because how rich their land was. And then notice it's Issachar and Zebulun. Naphtali also is known to, the Incas down there, they're known to have they're rich in a lot of llamas, similar to donkeys as well. So they brought all those things on donkeys. That's what a mule is.
Yep. An ass is also a donkey. It's a name for an ass or a pack mule. Right. Back here.
So it's spiritual because Issachar means donkeys, and
that's right. It's one of their symbols.
Zebulon's there, like you notice really Zebulon, and there's always one tribe that's similar to the other. Like with Judah, it's Benjamin.
Yep.
With Issachar, it would be Zebulon. With Gad, it would be, you could say Reuben.
Yeah. Ephraim and Manasseh. Naphtali and Asher. Who we missing?
Levi
and Simeon. Yeah, they always kind of got pairs, right? Where was I at? Genesis 30. That's where I was at. Let's go to verse 20. It says, and Leah, or verse 19 says, and Leah conceived again and bare Jacob, and bare Jacob a sixth son, and yea, and Leah said, God hath endowed me with a good dowry. Now with my husband and dwell. Now will my husband dwell with me, because I have borne him 6 sons. And she called his name Zebulun. And afterwards, she bare a daughter and called her name Diana. Okay, so Zebulun is the 6th son out of Leah, born to Jacob. And what does his name mean again? Zebulun.
Gabar-yah-ahla means dwelling.
He will dwell with me. My husband will dwell with me.
That's why I meant dwelling. Like that's why when you look at a Honduran woman, there's a certain type of attraction that they always bring to you. Because it goes back to how Leah wanted her husband to dwell with her. Like when you go into an Issacharite woman, that's why the brother like what chose to get an Issacharite.
Yeah, for real, bro.
Because Leah was worked for her man to try to get her.
That's right.
Gadite woman, you think about a warrior type of woman.
Yep. The Judite woman, you think of the nigga woman, man. You think about Eve. That's why she ain't got no husband, man. Eve out here by herself, man. The Issacharite woman got husbands. Zebulun, they got husbands. All the tribes got husbands except Eve, man. Right? Judah don't got no husbands. Even the Benjamite woman got husbands, But Eve, the Judite woman, she ain't got shit, man. Especially the ones up here in America. All right? So
Judah's a real double-edged sword.
Shit.
But when the Judite woman is on point,
when she's in order, man. But that was like more back in the day. Like back in the day, when especially in the plantation, Eve would actually take care of her husband until Esau beat the shit out of that orderliness. Okay, and they broke both Eve and Jake. Okay, and that absolutely devastated the mental. If you read the Willie Lynch letters, it was a whole mental plan, a mental warfare on Jake, specifically the tribe of Judah. If you read the Willie Lynch letters on how they were going to break the minds of these people and make sure that those curses would carry on intergenerationally. Okay, so Esau got to pay for that. Let's go to we read Deuteronomy 33 about Zebulun, didn't we? Yeah. So that was with Issachar. It says Zebulun. He said, Zebulun, rejoice, Zebulun, in thy going out. Okay, and that's really all he says. It says they shall call the people unto the mountain. There they shall offer sacrifices, right, like they were doing in the Mayans and the Aztecs, of righteousness back in the Holy Land. For they shall suck of the abundance of the seas and of the treasures hid in the sand. But if you go, there's a really good omen in Genesis 49 for Zebulun. I actually did a video on this too a couple weeks ago. I believe it's Genesis 49, and 13, and it says, Zebulun shall dwell at the haven of the sea, he shall be a haven of ships, and his border shall be unto Zebulun. So Zebulun, which we teach, is from Guatemala to Panama, okay? That's the tribe of Zebulun. And what are they known for? It's basically the most central part of Central America, and that area is very extremely tropical. They're known for growing a lot of fruits, like citrus fruits, oranges, pineapples. It's very nice weather, warm weather, beaches everywhere. So it says, where it says Zebulun shall dwell at the haven of the sea, that's talking about that thin strip of land from Mexico all the way to South America, where you run into, Colombia right there? Or Venezuela. Let me get it on my maps real quick.
Yeah, because I me and my father at my house, we rented this room for twice to two Zebulonites. Actually, three times, three Zebulonites.
Mm-hmm.
They were Hondurians,
Mm-hmm.
so it was just spiritual because once again, Zebulon in the tents. I mean, Issachar in the tents, Zebulon.
Yep. And then what is so these are the countries that are conducive to that. So you got Guatemala, Belize, Honduras, El Salvador, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, and Panama. Okay, and what did it say in that verse? It said Zebulun shall dwell at the haven of the sea, and he shall be for an haven of ships. Now if you go to Panama, the most famous canal in the world, which is one of the most major ports and major canals that connects the Pacific Ocean to the Americas, specifically the Gulf of Mexico. The Panama Canal is one of the most important trade routes in the world. Okay, and it runs straight through Panama, which is Zebulonite territory. So where it says he shall be a haven of many ships, that's talking about the Panama Canal. Which, well, what is Trump said he was trying to take that over, right? Yeah. So.
And when you go into the map where Zebulon is at,
yep,
it's right between Asher and Issachar. What's the coincidence that it's also?
That's right.
In the Americas, southern
between
Americas.
Mexico and Colombia. Yep.
And there's a canal right there passing through it's called the Kishon River.
Mm-hmm.
It passes Asher, goes to Zebulon, ends with in Issachar's territory there near Jezreel.
Yep. Let me get their inheritance. This is Joshua 19 and 3, or 19 and 10. Sorry. Joshua 19 and 10. It says the third lot came up for the children of Zebulun according to their families, and the border of their inheritance was unto Sarad, and the border went up toward the sea of Marlah, and reached to Dab-basheth, and reached to the river that is before Jokanim, and turned from Sarad eastward toward the Surasine unto the border of Chisroth Bor, and then goeth out to the Barath, and goeth up to Jephthah. And it says, and from thence passeth along on the east to Gedahepher and Ikta-Kazin, and goeth out to the Ramon Hethmorah to Nea. And it says, and the border compasseth it on the north side to Hanathan, and the outgoings thereof are in the valley of Jibthahel, and Katath, and Nahal, and Shimron, and Idalah, and Bethlehem, 12 cities with their villages. This is the inheritance of the children of Zebulun according to their families, these cities with their villages. Okay, and then right after that it goes into Issachar. Okay, so on the map, go to the map just so we can show it to the camera. Zebulun is right next to Issachar. Okay, Issachar and Zebulun almost had the same amount of land. Okay, Issachar and Zebulun is right there in the blue area at the top of the map. Okay, so let's go to. Did you have anything else on Zebulun?
Let's see. That was about it.
Okay. Okay, we can go back to Genesis.
I think Tobit was from the tribe of Zebulun, though.
Tobit was I believe he was a Nephthalite, wasn't he? He could have been Zebulun. He might have been.
I think Jonah was then from Zebulun.
Let me see, because Tobit, it should tell you in Tobit 1. I believe I read that the other day too. Just to make sure, because Tobit.
Yeah, it says Naphtali.
Yeah. Tobit is a Nephthalite. Okay.
And Gilead is it. So,
Yep, from the tribe of Naphtali. Okay. We'll go back to Genesis. Now we've already had the birth of Issachar, the birth of Zebulun. Then we have next is and afterwards she bare a daughter and called her name Diana. Diana is the one that, was taken by those Canaanites, and then Levi and Simeon went ape shit and killed everyone. So, there's not much about Diana, but she
Dinah.
Dinah.
Probably a very fine woman. Doesn't say what tribe she's from, I don't think.
Nah, she's her own thing.
It's mystery.
She came back as a Judite woman. But let's see. Verse 22, it says, "And Yahweh remembered Rachel, and Yahweh hearkened unto her, and opened her womb, and she conceived, and bare a son, and said, God hath taken away my reproach. And she called his name Joseph, and said, the Lord shall add to me another son." It says, "And it came to pass, Rachel had born Joseph, that Jacob said unto Laban, Send me away, that I may go unto mine own place, into my country. Give me my wives and my children, for whom I have served thee, and let me go. For thou knowest my service, which I had done thee." And Laban said unto him, "I pray thee, if I have found favor in thine eyes, tarry, for I have learned by experience that the Lord Yahweh hath blessed me for thy sake." Because Jacob was a very good worker, okay? He was working hard for Laban. He was probably making him a lot of money, making sure the sheep and the cattle were taken care of, right? What did it say in a couple verses back? He was coming from the field, coming from working, when Leah laid with him and bore Issachar, right? "Hath blessed me for thy sake, and he hath appointed me thy wages, and I will give it thee. And he said unto him, Thou knowest how I have served thee, and how thy cattle was with me, for it was little which thou hast before I came, and now increased unto a multitude." So basically, Laban waxed rich off of Jacob, right? What was the next one? It was Joseph. Okay, and he called his name Joseph, which Joseph, his tribe is accounted for Ephraim and Manasseh, really Ephraim, which is the head tribe. So we can actually.
What did you just read out there?
That was verse 22 to 30.
That's a long verse.
Yeah, that was verse 24. "And she called his name Joseph, and said, The Lord hath added to me another son."
Joseph is Yahweh Sap.
That's right.
Which means faithful, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep. We'll go
but really, it would be called Ephraim. We gotta get that first.
We'll get Ephraim. Yeah, that's what I was gonna get in Ephraim right here, because remember, Joseph, when it was sold into slavery in Egypt, and he had two sons with an Egyptian woman. Okay, it was Ephraim and Manasseh. All right, those two brothers, and I'm gonna get their blessing real quick.
I believe, Ephraim is Aparim in the Hebrew.
I am fruitful.
Fruitful, and Manasseh is Manasseh, which I believe is I think it's afflicted and heard, but I think that's actually Simeon, so I'm confused.
Let me get this.
Oh, no, made to forget. Yeah, I believe it means made to forget.
Yeah.
Because when you go into the Dominicans, they can forget shit. They can forget a lot of shit they go through.
Right here in Genesis 49 and 22, it says, "Joseph is a fruitful bow, even a fruitful bow by a well, whose branches run over the wall." Okay, like we said, the name of Ephraim means I am fruitful. So when the Joseph and Ephraim are basically interchangeable, okay, because that's Joseph's son, his youngest son, okay, and it says Joseph is a fruitful bow, even a fruitful bow by the well, and whose branches run over the wall. The archers have sorely grieved him, and shot at him and hated him, but his bow abode, and in strength, and the arms of his hands were made strong by the hands of the mighty God of Jacob, Yahweh. From thence is the shepherd, the stone of Israel. It says, even by the power of thy Father who shall help thee, and by the Almighty who shall bless thee with blessings of heaven above blessings, the deep that lieth under blessings, and the breast and of the womb, right? The blessings of the womb, because I am fruitful. Those Puerto Rican women, like we say, what's the stereotype of those Puerto Rican women, right? It says, and of the womb, and the blessing of thy Father had prevailed above the blessings of my progenitors unto the utmost bound of the everlasting hills. They shall be on the head of Joseph, and on the crown of his head, of him that was separate from his brethren. Yeah, because he was sold, right?
What was the last verse there?
That was 26.
I got some commentary here.
Go ahead.
It starts at 22. But only the promises given to Judah, verse 8 to 12 in the same chapter, can rival the praise Jacob gave to Joseph. The imagery of archers who shot at him represents Joseph's personal experience at the hands of his brothers and then the Egyptians. Chapters 37, 39, and 40. Not only did Joseph have great strength of character represented by the strong bow, but he was protected by the mighty God of Jacob. Earlier, Jacob had described the Lord as the God of Abraham and Isaac, Genesis 48 and 15. Here he expressed his faith in the God who had blessed him. In verse 25. Even the God of thy father who shall help thee, and by the Almighty who shall bless thee with the blessings of heaven. It says in 26, Jacob's blessing on Joseph concluded with the most enthusiastic words. Separate is the word also used for the Nazarites in Numbers 6, 1 to 21. This is in 26. The blessings of thy father have borne the blessings of thy progenitors into the utmost. Shall be the head of Joseph, and on the crown of the head of him that was separate from his. That's why Joseph was the king of the northern tribes.
Yeah. Just to add on to that, I just typed in Google because the Puerto Ricans, of so-called Puerto Ricans, which are really the tribe of Ephraim, which is synonymous with Joseph. Their indigenous name in the Americas was the Taino Indians in the Caribbean. Okay, and when Cristobal Colon came over here in 1492, they were the first people that they encountered. Okay, and it says the Spanish.
That's why it mentioned
the arrows, being shot, and they were being devastated. Actually, that was one of the most bloody massacres, one of the largest massacres of one of the tribes of Israel. Okay, by Esau in the beginning, because the Taino Indians, Esau killed so many of their men that they actually had to go get slaves from the west coast of Africa and bring them in to what's now called Puerto Rico so that they could have workers. They killed almost every single male of the Taino Indians. That's why this came up. It says the Spanish conquest of the Taino people who inhabited the Caribbean islands was brutal and devastating. And what did it say? Where was that one? Joseph is a fruitful bow. The archers have
grieved him and shot at him and
hated him. It was, but his bow abode in strength. So they actually survived that, because the Lord helped them. Okay, and it says, who inhabited the Caribbean islands was a brutal and devastating process driven by a combination of factors. The arrival and initial contact by Christopher Columbus arrived in 1492. The Taino people were the first indigenous people the Europeans encountered. Columbus initially described them as a peaceful, kind people, which is why they were able to take advantage of them, right? And it says, however, this encounter marked the beginning of an invasion by Spanish explorers, priests.
I gotta get this too.
Go ahead.
Land backing on the house, it says how his bow abode in his strength, and his arms of his hands were made strong by the hands of the mighty God of Jacob. It says here in this commentary below my Bible here, the blessings of Joseph is the most eloquent of all. Verses 23 to 24, that's specifically where it mentions his strength, are a brief biography of Joseph in later years, showing Joseph's strength. But also here, Joshua was from the tribe of Ephraim, and Deborah were from the tribe of Ephraim, and Gideon and Jephthah from the tribe of Manasseh. Those were two mighty judges, and those other two, that was a mighty woman there, Deborah, and that was a mighty brother right there, Joshua. So just going on once again.
That's right. And what does it say in verse 25? Even by the power of thy Father, who shall help thee, and by the Almighty, which is Yahweh, who shall bless thee with blessings of heaven above. In order for the Taino people to survive what they survived by the Spanish conquest, the conquistadores, they had to have the help of the Heavenly Father. Otherwise, they would have been wiped out. Enslavement and forced labor, that was some of the most brutal enslavement in the island of Puerto Rico. There's a reason why Puerto Rico is known as being called today the rich port, or the port of riches. It was because the slaves were commodities. They were used as commodities, and Christopher Columbus made a lot of money by selling and trading on the North Atlantic slave trade, okay? Mainly by those Taino Indians, okay? Disease and population, warfare and violence. Despite some initial attempts to live at a peaceful coexistence, conflict arose as the Spanish sought to control the land and resources. Taino resistance was met with brutal suppression and massacres. So that's what Esau did to Ephraim, man. Right? What does it say that he shall send his fruit over the wall somewhere? What is that? Where is that?
I had a bit more on that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Precept to that, Genesis 45 and 11. And there will I nourish thee, for yet there are 5 years of famine, lest thou and thy household and all that thou hast come into bondage. So also just going into how I mentioned there, from thence is the shepherd, the stone of Israel. I don't know if it says that in the Bible, in 24, around the last sentence. From thence is the shepherd, the stone of Israel.
Yep, from thence is the shepherd, the stone of Israel.
Okay, just going into how Ephraim, Joseph was a shepherd to his people at that time when the famine came.
Yep.
And then those other accounts there, Joshua, Deborah, Gideon, Jephthah. Just going into that once again, and even today, how a lot of Ephraimites are known to help Jake out.
Yep. And actually, Ephraim and Jake, specifically Judah, a lot of those people down there in Puerto Rico right now, a lot of them are actually Judah, because like I said, they killed so many of the Taino Indians that they actually brought Judah from west coast of Africa, and they brought them down to Puerto Rico, and they made them work as slaves.
When you look at it too, a lot of Ephraimites, they're mostly stick with Judah too, when you notice than with any other tribe.
Yeah, especially in New York. If you go to New York, or what's that, Spanish Harlem, you have the Bronx, okay, and then you have Spanish Harlem. And then you have, where's Judah at? That's Harlem, right? You have Harlem, Spanish Harlem, and the Bronx. That's all Ephraim and Judah right there, for the most part.
We're gonna get into the branch, the boss.
Yeah, he sends his.
Boff, even a fruitful boff by a well.
Yep.
His branches run over the wall.
Yeah.
Like that.
His branches run over the wall. Okay, so what Puerto Ricans, they tend to send their. If you go down to Miami, Southern Florida, there's a whole lot of Haitians and Puerto Ricans down there, okay? Because they send, what's that verse? He sends his children over the wall to the murderer or to the thief. That's it right there, right?
That might be in Deuteronomy.
Yeah, let me actually find that, because these Puerto Rican people, Ephraim, they're known for leaving their island and coming to America to chase a better life. However, I believe it says,
I got a precept. Yeah. Psalm 80 and verse 11. She sent out her boss unto the sea and her branches unto the river. Why hast thou then broken down her hedges, so that all they which pass by the way do pluck her? So that's going into also how Ephraim has a lot of children. They're very fruitful. A lot of Ephraimites have tons of children. and just going into how they got to America and also populated down here. They were really the first to come to America like that than all the other Latin tribes.
Mm-hmm.
That's why to this day, Ephraim doesn't need a immigration status when he comes over.
Puerto Rico is a American territory. So, I'm trying to find the one in Deuteronomy 33.
It says down here, when you go down to verse 25, even by the God thy father who shall help thee, and thy Almighty who shall bless thee with blessings of heaven from above and blessings of the deep that lieth under. Blessings of the heaven and blessings of the deep, going into how they get tons of rain, and they also have blessings of the deep, going into how they got tons of fish as well down there, tons of fruits, resources,
known as
minerals.
rich port, man. I got this right here, Deuteronomy 33 and 13, and it says, and of Joseph he said, blessed of the Lord be his land. Like you were saying, they're known for having a lot of fruits, rain, minerals, gold too.
What verse is that?
Deuteronomy 33 and 13. It says, and of Joseph he said, blessed of the Lord be his land, for the precious things of heaven, for the dew, like you said, the rain, and for the deep that coucheth beneath. And a lot of fish. That's what he's talking about, the deep, right? They have a lot of fish. That's what the Caribbean. Okay, so those deep waters, and they're actually known for having crystal clear blue waters down there. And it says, and for the deep that couches beneath, and for the precious fruits brought forth by the sun, and for the precious things put forth by the moon. It says, and for the chief things of the ancient mountains, and for the precious things of the lasting hills. It says, for the precious things of the lasting hills, and for the precious things of the earth, and fullness thereof, and for the good will of him that dwelt in the bush.
That goes into how Moses was by the bush.
Mm-hmm.
They met by the bush.
Yep.
And Gideon too, he was by the bush.
Yep. It says, let the blessing come upon the head of Joseph, and upon the top of the head of him that was separated from his brethren. His glory is like the firstling of his bullock, and his horns are like the horns of unicorns. With them he shall push the people together to the ends of the earth, and they are the 10,000s of Ephraim. Remember, Ephraim, the 10,000s of Ephraim, because Ephraim is fruitful. And it says, and they are the thousands of Manasseh.
So basically it goes into how when you go into the blessing of Joseph and Manasseh, they both got the same blessing, but Joseph got a more bigger portion of it.
Yeah.
You gotta get that in. If you can look that up in Genesis when the Lord get when Manasseh was born.
That's in the 30th chapter.
No, that had to have been when Joseph later on, when he was
in Egypt. Yeah. Let me get this.
Because I believe when Joseph had Manasseh, that was his second son.
Yep.
Actually, I know that was actually.
No, Manasseh was the oldest. Manasseh was the oldest. Ephraim was the youngest.
Manasseh was the oldest son.
Yep.
So when he got Manasseh, he was like, "Oh, all right, the Lord made me to forget my affliction." So that's why I believe Manasseh. I'm pretty sure if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure that that's what it means, made to forget. It's very similar to Simeon. That's why Manasseh, when Joseph, and then later on we got to get to when Jacob was trying to bless Manasseh. But
yeah, this is Genesis 41.
Well, Jacob was trying to bless Ephraim, but Joseph was like, no, that's the youngest. That's
yep.
Yeah.
And he thought he was making a mistake. He said, no, I know what I'm doing.
So that's why when today, that's why when I'm gonna keep this gift.
Okay, this is Genesis 41 and 50, and it says, "And unto Joseph were born 2 sons before the years of the famine came, which ascended, which Asenath, the daughter of Potipharah, priest, priest of On bare unto him." Okay, so this is the daughter of of Egyptian, I believe. She's an Egyptian, right? It says, "And Joseph called the name of the firstborn Manasseh, for God's for Yahweh said he hath made me forget all my toil." Right? This was what you said. So I forget my affliction. And mine in all my father's house. And the name of the second called Ephraim.
So they were twins, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Twins for real?
It says, well, it doesn't say they're twins. It just says they were both born.
Yeah, I think they were twins.
Yeah, I think one came out first. So Manasseh was first. And it says, "And the name of the second called he Ephraim, for Yahweh hath caused me to be fruitful in the land of my affliction." That's why Ephraim's name means he is fruitful. Okay. "And the 7 years of plenteousness that was in the land of Egypt were ended." Okay, that's just right before the famine. In the 7 years of dearth, which is famine, began to come, according as Joseph had said, in the dearth.
What did it say when Joseph was born?
When Joseph was born,
Ephraim. That was
Ephraim, it says, "For God hath caused me to be fruitful in the land of my affliction."
Yeah, that's why I'm made to be fruitful.
Yep.
Because back in that time, man, when you had sons, it would actually have a meaning to it.
Mm-hmm.
Today, you would just be named after. Nothing wrong with well, I got my name from my father.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it been so that's still a meaning to it though.
Mm-hmm.
But like especially with Esau today, he doesn't really.
Well, you know,
Jacob's known to have more spiritual meanings behind their sons' names.
yeah, and a lot of times these curses, okay, these names that we got, like we get a lot of our names, especially our last names, are from our slave masters. But even today, a lot of Judah, you'll see that their mother specifically, Eve, will name their son a fucking retarded ass fucking name, man, like Jaquarion, right?
Yeah.
Tarquez, some shit like that, you know. But back in the day, like you said, these names actually meant something, right? When the son was born, it was a happy thing because what you were doing was you were extending your line. That's your line. That's your bloodline. That's what ties you to the earth. Okay, so when you go back to the spirit world, you now have a descendancy, you have a lineage that you can now come back through to the earth. Okay, this is why sons were so important. Okay, and they carried on your legacy because you knew daughters were important, but they weren't as important as sons because a daughter, that's the end of your line. Your daughter's not going to continue your line. Okay, your daughter's going to go off and continue some other man's line, right? So your sons are what's important. So
that's why Manasseh, Ephraim, when you go into it today, that's why, you know, look up the land again too, because if I'm not mistaken,
yeah. Let me get Manasseh.
Cuba is next to Puerto Rico, I think.
I'm pretty sure. Let me get this on maps.
While you get that, I'm gonna read this. In Deuteronomy 33, verse 13 to 17, the commentator here wrote here that Joseph, represented by his 2 sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, in verse 17, it reads, that's why it says, and his horns are like the horns of unicorns. Let me see here. His horns are like the horns. With them he shall push the people together to the ends of the earth.
Yep. Yeah, so
I got some bit more here.
go ahead.
Let's see, gotta put some math. Never mind that. Because when you go into both of their lands, it was push the people to the ends of the earth. They got really Ephraim, Manasseh got out of Ephraim, Manasseh got the most land, but when you think about
Because remember, they said, why do I have such little land? This is too small for me because I'm a great people. That's what Ephraim said, right? And they said if it's too small for you, push up into the mountains.
When you go into it, it says would have. They say so they would have the choicest part of the land. Even when you go into it today, they have the best parts of the land.
And it's that's actually symbolic, because go back to that map. Where's Ephraim at? Yeah, so Manasseh actually has more land than Ephraim. And if you look at it, Cuba, which is Manasseh, and Puerto Rico, which is Ephraim. Puerto Rico is a tiny little island, right? But they're more fruitful, they're more populous than Cuba. Cuba is a big ass island. It's one of the biggest Caribbean islands. So you have Cuba. In between Cuba and Puerto Rico, you have Haiti, and in between Cuba and Puerto Rico, you have the Dominican Republic and Haiti. That island is in between the two. Okay, right here, Ephraim and Manasseh are next door neighbors.
And they're next right there.
They're separated by Haiti and the Dominican Republic right there. So that's Puerto Rico, the little island. Then you have Haiti and Dominican Republic, and then over here is Cuba. Cuba's that whole big ass island right there, and Jamaica's right there under it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very spiritual, because even with the map in Israel, their ancient lands, Manasseh had way more than Ephraim.
Yep, and Ephraim is known for being populous, right? And they complained about it. Let me see if I can find their blessing in Deuteronomy 33. Well, they were going into Joseph, which is Ephraim, so that's their blessing. Right here, 17, Deuteronomy 33 and 17. His glory is like the firstling of the bullock, and his horns are like the horns of unicorns. With them he shall push the people together in the ends of the earth. They are the thousands of Ephraim, and they're the 10,000 of Ephraim, and the thousands of Manasseh. Right?
Oh, it says he shall push the people to the ends of the earth, right? That goes into how Ephraim and Manasseh, when you go into, right, how they migrated from, and they took the narrow passageway by the river Euphrates and Sirach, when they came over here, because after Assyria took them down. That would happen a bit before the book of Tobit.
Yep. Ephraim was the head tribe of the northern tribes, and they pretty much took the charge. They took the lead and said, "We're leaving. We're gonna push our people to the ends of the earth." Right.
And it says they are the 10,000s of Ephraim. Nor they gave Ephraim, Moses gave Ephraim in Deuteronomy 10,000. He gave Manasseh thousands.
Yep. Leave. So we just did Ephraim and Manasseh. And then what happens is Jacob runs away. Remember, he took his inheritance, and then he ran away. Put his flocks by themselves and put them not unto Laban's cattle. So he separated. Remember, Jacob separated the cattle, okay, gave himself the good cattle, okay, and then it came to pass, whensoever the stronger cattle did conceive, Jacob laid the rods before the eyes of the cattle in the gutters, and that they might conceive among the rods. But when the cattle were feeble, he put them not in. So the feebler were Laban's, and the stronger were Jacob's. Right. So Jacob's doing a little more supplanting right there. And then we don't get. Where's Benjamin? We gotta get to Benjamin.
Wait, can you get one last thing?
Yep.
Joseph, when Jacob blesses Joseph's sons, get that account.
Yeah. Let me get that.
So that was just balance, the Lord gave Manasseh bigger land, but Ephraim was still the head, to a certain degree. Really, you would have thought that Ephraim would have gotten the bigger piece of land, but you know, it was his older brother Manasseh. So Manasseh being the older brother, you know, the Lord decided to give Manasseh the bigger piece of land.
That's was this Genesis 48, I believe.
And then Cubans are also known to be good baseball players.
Yep.
But Ephraimites are good at boxing and what else? Track and more sports like that.
Let's see. I'm trying to find it. I believe it's Genesis 48. And Jacob said unto Joseph, this is Genesis 48:3. And Jacob said unto Joseph, Yahweh Almighty appeared unto me in Luz in the land of Canaan and blessed me, and said unto me, Behold, I will make thee fruitful and multiply thee, and I will make thee a multitude of people, and will give this land to thy seed and after thee for an everlasting possession. And now thy two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, which were born unto thee in the land of Egypt before I came unto thee into Egypt, are mine. So remember, Ephraim and Manasseh are not Jacob's sons. They are his grandsons. Now, Jacob just laid the claim on them, officially making them two tribes in the nation of Israel. Well, you could say they're one tribe because they both count for Joseph, but they're two tribes, right? So it says, and now thy two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, which are born unto thee in the land of Egypt before I came unto thee into Egypt, are mine. As Reuben and Simeon, they shall be mine. So he's likening them unto his own sons, okay? And thy issue which thou begattest after them shall be thine, and shall be called after the name of their brethren in their inheritance, okay? And as for me, when I came from Paran, Rachel died by me in the land which Canaan in the way.
Did you get when they give them? Yeah, gave them the blessing.
And Joseph said unto his father, They are my sons, whom God hath given me in this place. And he said, Bring them, and I pray thee unto me, and I will bless them. Verse 10. Now the eyes of Israel were dim, so he was losing his vision because he was getting old. And it says, so that he could not see. And he brought them near unto him, and he kissed them and embraced them. And Israel said unto Joseph, I have not thought to see thy face, and lo, Yahweh hath showed me also thy seed. And Joseph brought them out from between his knees. Okay, so these had to be little kids, man. They had to be little ones, right? So it says, and Joseph brought them out from between his knees, and he bowed himself with his face to the earth. And Joseph took them both, Ephraim in his right hand, toward Israel's left, and towards Israel's left hand, and Manasseh in his left hand toward Israel's right hand, and brought them near unto him. And Israel stretched out his right hand and laid it upon Ephraim's head. So Jacob had to reach across his body. So he reached across his body to touch Ephraim, okay? It's kind of weird because you would think that he would reach straight forward. So he actually purposefully reached across his body to get to Ephraim. And it says, and Israel stretched out his right hand and laid it upon Ephraim's head, who was the younger, and his left hand upon Manasseh said, and guiding his hand wittingly, for Manasseh was the firstborn. It says wittingly. So he knew what he was doing, right? So he went like this. He went his right hand over here, and then so he basically crossed his hands like this, okay? And he was blessing them like that. And it says, and he blessed Joseph and said, Yahweh, before whom my fathers Abraham and Isaac did walk, and the God which fed me all my life long unto this day, the angel which redeemed me from all evils, bless the lads, and let my name be named on them. So they're official tribes, okay? And it says, in the name of my fathers Abraham and Isaac, and let them grow into multitude in the midst of the earth. And when Joseph saw that his father laid his right hand on the head of Ephraim, it displeased him, and he held up his father's hand to move it from Ephraim's head to Manasseh's head. And Joseph said unto his father, Not so, my father, for this is my firstborn, but put thy right hand on his head. And his father refused and said, I know it, my son, I know it. He also shall become a people, and he also shall be great, but truly his younger brother shall be greater than he, and his seed shall become a multitude of nations. Okay, that's going into his name, right? Yeah, verse 20. Yeah, verse 20, 19 and 20.
So notice it said, God make thee as Ephraim and as Manasseh, and he said Ephraim before Manasseh. So that's why Ephraim got chosen to be the head.
Yep. And he said, and he blessed them that day, saying, In thee shall Israel bless, saying, Yahweh make thee as Ephraim, and as Ephraim, and as Manasseh, and he set Ephraim before Manasseh. Right there in verse 20.
I want to go on top to 19 a bit when it says, He shall also become and his father refused and said, I know it, my son, I know it. Because going back once again to, he also shall become a people. So he said, Manasseh shall also become a people, and he also shall be great. Which that's why Manasseh got the bigger land. It says, but truly his younger brother shall be greater than he, and his seed shall become a multitude of nations. That's why.
Yep.
You even said it right, how Puerto Rico is
small,
but it's overpopulated, right?
Yeah.
And then even when you go into it, that's not counting how Ephraim got over here. The Ephraimites is over here.
21 says, And Israel said unto Joseph, Behold, I die.
And then if I may,
go ahead.
Even when you go into Cuba today, Cuba's not as a, once upon a time, Cuba was a great nation. But you go into it today, it's not even. It's really horrible. Their economy is horrible.
Terrible.
When you go into Ephraim today, they still have maintained some type of sustainability.
I believe they're a communist country, Cuba. They have communist leadership, and they're the country that had what was that, a couple months ago? They had nationwide blackouts down in Cuba. That was Cuba. They had that going on, where they had nationwide blackouts. The power grid down there, their infrastructure is terrible. The power grid is terrible. When the Lord starts Jacob's trouble and shit goes down, and they got hurricanes and shit, Cuba's gonna get fucked up, bad. Okay, they're already in dire straits. Let's see. And Israel said unto Joseph, Behold, I die, but Yahweh shall be with you, and bring you again unto the land of your fathers. Going into the last days, when we're in that time right now. So this prophecy that Jacob is giving, okay, is going on right now, okay, with the tribes waking up. It says, Moreover, I have given to thee one portion above thy brethren, which I took out of the hand of the Amorite with my sword and with my bow. So, yeah, there we go.
I got a bit more.
Go ahead.
You can get Acts 7. Just get 30 and 35. That's it.
Cool.
I'll get more about when it says in Deuteronomy 33:16 of the goodwill of him that dwelt in the bush. This is Exodus 3, 2 and 4 here. This is Exodus 3, verse 2 and 4. And the angel of the Lord, Yahweh, appeared unto him in a flame of fire out of the midst of a bush. And he looked, and behold, the bush burned with fire, and the bush was not consumed. Verse 40, going into how basically reminds you of Daniel. When there's 3 friends that were on fire, but basically they weren't in the fire, but weren't burned.
Azariah, Ananiah, and Mishael.
Yep. And it also represents Israel as a whole, all the shit that we've been going through throughout the history, but how ultimately in the end we're going to be made whole.
That's right.
Verse 4, when the Lord saw that he turned aside to see when the Lord saw that he turned aside to see, God called unto him out of the midst of the bush and said, Moses, Moses, and said, Here am I. So it represented that moment there represented freedom. And just like how when you go into the origins of how Israel began in their story, it started in Egypt. So that's why I said it goes back to all the way back to Joseph and Abram, Manasseh as well.
Right, because without Joseph going into Egypt, getting sold into Egypt, then Israel probably would have got wiped out by that famine, right? Because it was Joseph that was the wise man that told the Pharaoh that you got to stock up during these 7 good years. So Egypt became a mighty nation. Now, not to mention the fact that now the tribes come in, okay, and they wax greater and greater, and they actually multiplied so far that the pharaohs were scared. They actually came up with a plan to oppress the Israelites because they were growing too fast. Okay, so it was actually in Egypt where Israel became a nation. Okay,
so this says Moses later ended up becoming the leader. It represents how Abram and Manasseh would be leaders.
Yeah, and that's actually explains why a lot of our people get into that Kemet Egyptian shit, because that's actually where a lot of our origins go back to. Okay, so a lot of our Israelite peoples, what do they do? They're all about Kemet, Egyptology. What is that? What do they call that? Pan-Africanism. You know, they're all into that because we did actually get a springboard, a leap start in the land of Egypt. So I got verse 30, Acts 7 and 30. Yeah, okay. It says, and when 40 years were expired, there appeared to him in the wilderness of Mount Sinai an angel of the Lord in a flame of fire in a bush. When Moses saw it, he wondered at the sight, and as
jump to 35.
35 says, this Moses whom they refused, saying, Who made thee a ruler and judge? The same did Yahweh send to be a ruler and a deliverer by the hand of the angel which appeared to him in the bush.
Same thing that with Joshua and Gideon, how they would end up become like when you go into Joshua, he also split the rivers, divided them, just representing so that the Lord can show Israel that I'm dealing with Joshua just like I was dealing with Moses. Once again, Joshua was Abram was a leader.
Cool. I believe there's only Benjamin left, right?
Yeah. We gotta get how when he was born.
Yeah.
Benjamin is pronounced Banyanyam. In the Hebrew, it means. Man, what does it mean again?
Oh man. I knew it at one point. I think it's in his birth. Let me get it. Benjamin.
Son of the right, yeah. Son of the right.
Yes. Those are your so-called West Indians and your Jamaicans for the most part. Okay, your Rastafari, dreadlock wearing, weed smoking, herb and spice growing Jamaicans. That's Benjamin right there. Okay,
you get son of the right because when Judah, when you go into Rehoboam, Benjamin was the only one of the only tribes to stay with loyal to Judah, the house of David.
Genesis 35, and I'm gonna start at 17. That's the birth of Benjamin. Genesis 35. Started about 17, and it came to pass when she was in hard labor. Talk about Rachel, okay? It says, when she was in hard labor, that the midwife said unto her, Fear not, thou shalt have this son also. And it says, and it came to pass, as her soul was departing, for she died, she's dying in childbirth, okay, that she called his name Benjamin or Benjamin. But his father it's Benoi. She called him Benoi first, okay? But his father, Jacob, called him Benjamin or Benjamin. And it says, and Rachel died.
Let me see how that's spelled.
Benoni.
What does that mean? You know,
I don't know what Benoni means, but I know Benjamin is, like you said, son of the right. Actually, let me actually get that word.
I think it meant son of the left. How was he born again?
Hard labor. It says, for she died.
She died for giving him.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
She died in childbirth.
So that's why they were gonna name him
Benoni.
That's why
Right here it says, son of my sorrow. Son of my sorrow.
Basically, like son of the left.
Yeah. Or sinister, left, sorrow, mourning, because she was dying. And it says, the name given to Benjamin by Rachel.
And that's an omen, even that, because it just showed you how, like, in Judges.
Yeah, they almost got wiped. Yeah, it was Judges when they almost got wiped out. Yeah, that was
the last chapter, right?
Yeah, that was like actually, let me get it. I'll go to it real quick.
Because it just shows you, man, how omen, how future prophecy, how Benjamin was gonna just go haywire.
Yeah. A whole lot of sorrow. And they that was a woman that got dismembered by her husband because she got, let me see, it was in the last chapter.
That
made of people summoned.
The brother was a Levite, right?
Yeah, he was a Levite, and then it was Benjamin.
He chopped her ass in half.
12 pieces.
12 pieces.
Yep.
Also going into Manasseh, how he was cruel once again. No, Haiti. Yeah, instruments of cruelty.
Yeah.
And it just shows you how strong Benjamin, because the right, son of the right can go into your right hand, so it can the right hand represents strength. It's going into how Benjamin was very strong.
Yeah, because when Israel came up, they had hundreds of thousands of soldiers coming against Benjamin, and at first Benjamin was whooping their ass. Benjamin was they killed like 30,000. And then the Judah had to ask the Lord, "Do you want us to keep going up there?" And they went up there again, and they got whooped. And then eventually they got them.
It's like one of the dark stories of the scriptures.
Yeah,
Israel's history.
Breach in Israel. That's what they said, because Judges 21 and 15. So it's right here, where it says, and they gave of the tribe of Judah they gave out of the tribe of the children of Judah, and out of the tribe of the children of Simeon, the cities which were mentioned by name. Slaki, I'm in the wrong book. I'm in Joshua. I'm gonna go to Judges, one book over.
What was the chapter when he was born? What chapter was that again?
That was Genesis 35. Okay. I believe 15.
You can get what you're doing.
Yeah, this is Judges 21. Yep, Judges 21 and 15. Right here. And it says, I'll start at 13. And the whole congregation sent some to speak with the children of Benjamin that were in the rock, Rimon, and to call peaceably unto them. And Benjamin came again.
I think about it. I think it was also judgment on Rachel, I think, because I think Rachel had idols, and a certain idol when...
Oh.
Because, when... Rachel... Because I believe Rachel was Eve.
Could have been, yeah.
That was judgment on her, going all the way back to believing in that serpent.
Yeah.
That's why she died. Like, imagine...
Yeah, she had one, and she couldn't get pregnant either. She was having trouble having children. So the Lord was kind of punishing her the whole time, right? So, it says, and the whole congregation sent some to speak to the children of Benjamin that were in the rock Ramon, and to call peaceably unto them. And Benjamin came again at that time, and they gave them wives which they had saved alive for the women of Jeshbesh Gilead, and yet they sufficed them not. And the people repented, them for Benjamin, because that the Lord had made a breach in the tribes of Israel. And then they said that the Lord made a breach in the tribes of Israel because of so many Benjamites were wiped out, and Benjamin was about to be a no people. They were about to be a non-tribe, right? I'm trying to figure out.
What chapter are you on about that?
Judges 21. I'm gonna go back to how many that actual. Oh yeah, if you go to 20 and 41, it says, and when the men of Israel turned again, the men of Benjamin were amazed, for they saw that evil was come upon them. Therefore, they turned their backs before the men of Israel unto the way of the wilderness. But the battle overtook them, and them which came out of the cities they destroyed in the midst of them. Thus they enclosed in the Benjamites round about, and chased them, and trode them down with ease over Gabar toward the sun rising. It says, and there fell of Benjamin 18,000 men. All these were men of valor. And they turned and fled toward the wilderness unto the rock Ramon, and they gleaned of them in the highways 5,000 men, and pursued hard after them to Gedom, and slew 2,000 men of them, so that all which fell that day of Benjamin were 25,000 men, and drew the sword. All these were men of valor, but 600 men turned and fled into the wilderness unto the rock Ramon, and abode in the rock Ramon for 4 months. And the men of Israel turned up again upon the children of Benjamin, and smote them with the edge of the sword, as well the men of every city, as the beasts, and all that came to hand. Also, they had set fire to all the cities that they came to. So Benjamin was getting wiped out because it was wasn't it? What do they call those? The sons of Belial. They called them. I believe they called them sons of Belial or Belial, where they're basically like YNs today, like young thugs. Okay, they were Benjamites, YNs. Okay, that raped a concubine of a Levite, and it said they did it all night. Okay, they said that she was basically passed out on the fucking let me see yeah, if you go to Judges chapter 19 and verse 25, it says, but the men would not hearken unto him. So the men took his concubine, and brought her forth unto them, and they knew her, and abused her all the night until the morning. And when the day began to spring, they let her go. So they basically gang raped her for like 8 hours straight. And it says till it was light, and her Lord rose up in the morning and opened the doors. Yeah, okay, yeah. So basically, Benjamin, the sons of Belial, did that, and this is why the Lord sent the rest of Israel to go destroy the Benjamites. Okay. However, he didn't destroy them all. So they were actually able to kind of come back. So yeah. So if we go back to Genesis, let's see, Deuteronomy 33, is he in there? We'll go to Deuteronomy 33 and 12. It says, Deuteronomy 33 and 12, it says, and of Benjamin he said, beloved of the Lord shall dwell in safety by him, and the Lord shall cover him all the day long, and he shall dwell between his shoulders. Okay. Yeah, so this is the blessing of Benjamin. He says he's beloved of the Lord shall dwell in safety by him. I believe Jamaica is one of the few islands down there that is relatively independent. You have Kingston, Jamaica. A lot of them. You did have the French down there for a little while, but I believe Haiti and Jamaica are one of the two islands that actually are quite independent. So where it says he shall dwell in safety by him, and the Lord shall cover him all the day long, and he shall dwell between his shoulders. So yeah, I believe that's the last tribe, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, Benjamin was born last. Rachel died in childbirth having him, and he was named son of the right.
You got the Genesis 49 one?
Or
did you get
I believe
Deuteronomy?
Yeah, I just read Deuteronomy. Genesis 49.
It says, Benjamin shall raven as a wolf. In the morning he shall devour the prey, and at night he shall devour the spoil. This is going into how raven as a wolf, because also going into how the Jamaicans would sing a lot of Benjamites, they'll say son of the lion, Lion of Judah on their songs back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
They were known to speak on a lot about them being the Israelites and stuff. When you go back into the songs they would used to make.
Mm-hmm.
So that's Benjamin shall raven as a wolf, going into how he was singing that. Judah was known more to sing about the Gospels music, but Benjamin was speaking about how they were the Israelites, they were the Lion of Judah. In the morning he shall devour the prey. This is going when Yahweh returns. Also just going into how there was a saying that they would say when Israel would go to war, they would say, Benjamin, I forgot what the phrase was. You might remember it. Benjamin, rise Benjamin or something like that. Benjamin to the battle. Yeah, Benjamin would. I remember in the time of Joshua, or even in the time of David, David would put Benjamin right in the front of the battle.
Well, wasn't Saul was a Benjamite, right? Saul was from the house of Benjamin, and what was the one of the defining factors of Saul? He was bigger than everybody. Saul was a mighty warrior, okay, and what did it say? He was head and shoulders above everybody else. And it said that even though Benjamin was known for being a small tribe, they were still known for having that warrior type spirit, which is why it says right here, Benjamin shall raven as a wolf. Okay, in the morning he shall devour. Okay, so they've always had that that physical prowess, right?
And the children of going into how they basically destroyed down the ground of the Israelites that day, 20 and 2,000 men.
Yeah.
Going into that, raven as a wolf once again.
Yep.
When you go into a raven.
Raven, I think I got that. Raven means it's taraf or tarap. It means to tear, to rend, to pluck, to tear, to be torn in pieces, to be torn. Okay.
I believe Esther was a Benjamin too.
A Benjamite.
You can get Esther 8 and 11.
Esther. Esther 8. You said
Yeah.
20. Oh, right here. Was it Esther 8 and 2?
Esther 8 and 11.
Esther 8 and 11 says, wherein the king granted the Jews, which were in every city, to gather themselves together and stand for their life, to destroy and slay, to cause to perish all the power of the people and province that would assault them, both little ones and women, and to take the spoil of them for a prey.
That's what.
Yeah, that was basically going into Purim, when Esther.
What's that one about that verse?
Where the king granted the Jews, wherein the king granted the Jews, which were in every city, to gather themselves together and to stand for their life. So he basically gave them the right to self-defense. Because remember, Haman said, we need to kill all these people.
Check if Esther is a Benjamin.
Let's see.
Look it
I
up.
think it's earlier.
You can just use Google.
Yeah, let me see.
Yeah, because Esther was, if I'm not mistaken, she was a Benjamin. So this is just going into that.
Does that mean Mordecai was also a Benjamite? Because he was her uncle, right?
I think so. There was also another Benjamite in the book of Judges who killed this king of Moab.
Yep, she was a Benjamite. It says, yes, Esther was a Benjamite from the tribe of Benjamin. She was it says Jewish, but she was a Jew woman living in Persia during the exilic period of the book of Esther. Identifies her as the adopted daughter of Mordecai, who explicitly stated to be from the tribe of Benjamin. Look at this. Look at these pictures they got of Esther.
Yeah, white woman.
Yeah, they got Cleopatra right here.
This is Ezekiel 39:10. So shall they take no wood out of the field, neither cut down any out of the forest. For they shall burn the weapons with fire, and they shall spoil those that spoil them, and rob those that rob them, says Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahushua. So going into, once again, how Benjamin's going to be at night, and at night he shall divide the spoil. At night is Esau's. Is going to be when Esau is in his night, when Yahweh returns, and Benjamin's going to be one of those tribes that really spoils and takes a lot of these heathen stuff. Yeah, you can look up that one judge that was Benjamin.
That was the one that killed the Moabite king.
Yeah.
That was what was his name? I know the king's name was Eglon. That was Ehud, right? Ehud. That was in Judges. Judges 3 and 12. Judges 3 and 12. Book of Judges. Chapter 3, verse 12, it says, and the children of Israel did evil again in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord strengthened Eglon, the king of Moab, against Israel, because they had done evil in the sight of the Lord. And he gathered unto him the children of Ammon and Amalek, and went and smote Israel, and possessed the city of palm trees. So the children of Israel served Eglon, the king of Moab, 18 years. But when the children of Israel cried unto the Lord raised up a deliverer, Ehud, the son of Gera, a Benjamite, a man left-handed. Remember, where it goes into that name, where that Rachel was gonna name Benjamin Ben-Noi, which goes into son of my sorrow. A Benjamite, a man left-handed, and by him the children of Israel sent present to Eglon, the king of Moab. And he had basically went in there as an assassin, got a private meeting with the king, and he stabbed him with a dagger in the gut. And he was so fat that the dagger got stuck in his stomach and he couldn't pull it out. So yeah, that's what happened.
This is Zechariah 14:1. Behold, the day of the Lord cometh, and thy spoil shall be divided in the midst of thee. Going into once again how Benjamin's gonna get the spoils when Yahweh Shai comes in verse 14. Actually, 7. But it shall be one day which shall be known to the Lord, not day nor night, but it shall come to pass that at evening time it shall be light. So going into how that night once again in the 27th verse, that's really going into our day and these other heathens' nights.
Yep. I think we talked about the light yesterday at camp, how we were going to be a light to these Gentiles, meaning, when you talk to a lot of Christians and they say that the Israelites were supposed to be a light into the Gentiles, they think that means that we're going to be, that's a good thing for them, which if you actually read the scriptures, that's not a good thing for them. It means that we're going to be oppressing them. It means that we're going to rule over them with a rod of iron. If you read Revelation 2:26-28, it tells you that we would get the he that overcometh and keepeth my works to the end, him will I give power over the nations, and I will give him the morning star, basically becoming the new Illuminati. Okay, the new Illuminati is going to be that Gabar-yah-ahla, the house of David. Okay, that new government that's going to be established on the earth underneath Yahweh Shai. So that's that new enlightenment, right? So being a light into the nations is becoming the new Illuminati, ruling the earth and oppressing these nations with a rod of iron.
Well, technically speaking, though, brother, I mean, we are going to be a light because we ain't just going to whoop their ass.
That's right. We're gonna. Was that Isaiah chapter 2? Isaiah chapter 2 goes into how they're going to come to us and learn the ways of the Lord, right? So that first 1,000 years of the kingdom, these other nations, they're going to be beaten down with a rod of iron, and after 1,000 years, we're going to kind of, lighten up on them,
Ezekiel 22 and verse 20, just another precept going back.
Yep.
Ezekiel 22:25. There is a conspiracy of her prophets in the midst thereof, like a roaring lion ravening the prey. They have devoured swords, they have taken the treasure and precious things, they have made her many widows in the midst thereof. Now verse 27. Her princes in the midst thereof are like wolves ravening the prey to shed blood and to destroy soul. All right, that really doesn't have. I just wanted to get the precept they added, but that really doesn't fit there. 29:27.
Okay, and now that we've gone through all the tribes, okay, let's see here. You got something?
I just wanted to get.
Go ahead.
Wanted you to get Deuteronomy 33 again because I really wasn't paying attention.
Deuteronomy 33.
But this one, the commentary here reads from this one here. The image of a wolf is omnious. Judges 20, 21, and 25. Yeah, so it has a dark meaning behind it, and it has a righteous one behind it. Omnious.
Let's go to Deuteronomy.
Matter of fact, if you can, look up the word omnious.
Omnious?
Yeah.
Definition?
Yeah.
Or ominous, I believe. Ominous. It means giving the impression that something bad or unpleasant is going to happen, threatening or inauspicious. So, it's Latin origin, giving the impression that something bad is or unpleasant is going to happen. Ominous.
Going back to Judges 20 again. Once again, that's what that's going into.
Yep.
What was the one in Deuteronomy? I was just kidding.
I was gonna do
Deuteronomy 33. Verse I forgot what verse was it in?
I think it's
I got it here. 12.
Yeah.
And the Benjamin, he said, the beloved of the Lord shall dwell in safety by him, and the Lord shall cover him all the day long, and he shall dwell between his shoulders. Dwell between his shoulders, because when you go into, look up the Jamaica geographically,
Yep.
even when you go into the ancient land, Benjamin was like in the middle.
Yep. Right here, look at that. It's Jamaica's right between Cuba and Haiti. Right south of Cuba, southwest of Haiti. So it's in the middle. Look, see how it's really, literally in the middle of all the tribes. All the tribes here. You got Reuben here, Issachar, Zebulun, Asher, Naphtali. You have Simeon and Levi, Manasseh and Ephraim, but Benjamin's right here in the middle.
Benjamin would be like the.
Let's go to the map.
Yeah, so right, once again, draw between the shoulders.
Yep.
So you got Ephraim on the left,
See this?
Haiti on the left, Cuba above it, Gad above Jamaica. Asher would be below it.
Mm-hmm.
Issachar right on the right of it.
Yep.
With Zebulon there.
They're surrounded. Look, just like they were in the mainland, their inheritance right here. We can actually get their inheritance too. I believe that's in.
As also says here in the commentary, the site of the future temple in Jerusalem would be situated in the territory of Benjamin. He shall dwell, the Lord shall dwell. Yeah, because they say that right in the border, in between the border of Judah and Benjamin, was right there was would be the temple. So Benjamin would be literally, you took one step outside Benjamin's border, that's where the temple would be.
Yep. Joshua 18:11, and the lot of the tribe of the children of Benjamin came up according to their families, and the coast of their lot came forth between the children of Judah and the children of Joseph, which is Ephraim. And their border on the north side was from Jordan to the border, went up to the side of Jericho on the north side, and went up through the mountains westward. And the goings out were at the wilderness of Bethaven, and the border went over from thence toward Luz to the side of Luz, which is Bethel, southward, and the border descended to Ataroth Adar, near the hill that lieth on the south side of Nether Bethron. It says, and the border was drawn thence and compassed the corner of the sea southward, from the hill that lieth before Bethron southward, and the south quarter was from. Wait, where was that? In the corner of the sea southward, from the hill that lieth before Bethron southward, and the goings out therefore were at Kirjath-Albal, which is Kirjath-Jearim, a city of the children of Judah. This was the west quarter, and the south quarter was from the end of Kirjath-Jearim to the border, went out on the west, and went out on the well of the waters of Nephtoah. And the border came down to the end of the mountain, and lieth before the valley of the son of Heman, and which is the valley of the giants on the north, and descended to the valley of Heman, to the side of Jebusai on the south, and the descendants of Enrogel, and was drawn from the north, and went forth to Eshshemesh, and went forth to Gileath, which is over against the upgoing of Adumim, and descend to the stone of Benoah and the sons of Reuben, and passed along toward the side over Arabah northward, and went down to Arabah. Okay, so basically we're describing where Jerusalem's right at. Jerusalem's literally on the border of Judah and Benjamin. Okay.
Yeah, when you go into Jerusalem, the capital of Jerusalem,
Yep.
it was literally right near the border of Benjamin.
Yep.
When you look at the map of it.
Yep.
So that's right there between the shoulders.
That's right. So once again, you have Dan, Ephraim, Manasseh, Gad, Reuben, Judah, all surrounding Benjamin. So they're right there in the middle. And what do they call him? What was the nickname for Benjamin? Is Little Benjamin, right?
Yeah, and when you go into King Saul's territory, then you look into David's territory, then Solomon's. Saul was a Benjamite once again. That territory was in the head right there. Was in between the shoulders of Israel's full territory when Solomon would have came. Yeah, because the city of David was right there in Jerusalem, if I'm not mistaken, and then the temple would be more right there near in that city of David, capital in Jerusalem, if I'm not mistaken. Right, that was the city of David was in Jerusalem, right?
Yep.
And
yes,
this
it was.
Deuteronomy 33 verse, in the commentary it said here in verse 12, as the beloved son of Jacob, Benjamin was also the beloved of the Lord. Genesis 44 and 20. Let's get this in Genesis 44 and 20. It says, we said unto my Lord, we have a father, an old man, and a child of his old age, a little one. So this is going into the story of when Benjamin was being brought back to when Benjamin came with his brothers to visit his brother Joseph, which they didn't know was Joseph. Just in a nutshell. Now let me jump down quick to this. A little one, and his brother is dead, and he alone is left, one of his mother, and his father loveth him. Going back once again to Deuteronomy 33, it mentioned how let me see, let me just go back. It mentioned how no, I got it here. It's Genesis 33 and verse 12. It says, it says, and the Lord shall cover him all the day long. The beloved of the Lord shall dwell in safety by him, and the Lord shall cover him all the day long. Yep. Going into how, when you go into in verse 17, actually, once again, verse 20. Let's jump to verse 20. And his brother is dead, and he alone is left of his mother, and his father loveth him. And thou saidest unto thy servants, bring him down unto me, that I may set mine eyes upon him. So just going into how Benjamin was going to be kept safe.
Yep.
And then later on, when you go into Judges, how Benjamin still was kept safe because the Lord promised them that Benjamin wasn't going to die off. He was going to be kept.
Yeah, because remember, Jacob, he thought that Joseph was dead and Benjamin was his youngest son, so he was reluctant. He was reluctant to have Benjamin go into Egypt. And wasn't that Judah that said, if anything happens to him, he said, if anything happens to him, it'd be my responsibility. Was that Judah or was that Reuben that said that? I believe.
I don't remember.
I believe it was Judah that said that if anything happens to him, you can blame it on me. And so remember, Joseph is talking to his brothers right now. He knows that they're his brothers, but they don't know he's Joseph. So he's saying that the brother is dead. They're talking about him, okay? And he's saying, well, if he has a younger brother, bring him to me and prove it, right? Because he wanted to bring his family into Egypt. So
this is in Genesis 42 and 20. But bring your youngest brother unto me, so shall your words be verified, and you shall not die. And they did so.
Yep.
So they actually did end up going back and not bringing Benjamin. Benjamin stayed in prison. Actually, Joseph put him in a prison because Joseph still felt some type of way.
Yeah.
And then I'm not sure. I have to look back at the story. But
it says, and it came to pass when we came up to thy servant, my father, we told him the words of thy Lord, and our father said, go again, buy us a little food. And we said, we cannot go if our youngest brother be with us. If our youngest brother be with us, then will we go down, for we may not see the man's face, except our youngest brother be with us. And the servant,
So the first time they came, and Joseph gave him some food. But then he said, if you don't come back with your youngest brother, you gotta, because he thought his excuse was they were spies. So they brought back their younger brother to him. Then that's when Joseph kept him, and then sent them back. And I said, my father said unto us, you know that my wife bare me 2 sons, and the one went out from me. So yeah, that's the point.
Yeah. And he said in 29, it says, if ye take this also from me, and mischief befall him, talking about Benjamin, ye shall bring down my gray hairs with sorrow and to grieve. So Benjamin was loved by Jacob, and he was protected, basically.
Deuteronomy 33. I'm gonna see if I have some precepts on this one, because
Actually, I can probably get some too. 33 and 12, right?
yeah. It just said, it goes back to Genesis 49. Genesis 49 and let's see, Genesis 49. I don't think it gave me anything.
Yeah, I'm just getting Genesis 49 and Deuteronomy 33.
So I think, well, that's all I had on that.
Yeah, that's good. Yep, so we went through all the tribes, Benjamin being the last tribe. We have hit the omen nomens for each tribe's name, okay? So now, like we were going into at camp the other day, now we can go into, and now the 12 tribes chart sign makes a lot more sense, since we can describe the omens and the characteristics of each tribe, which is what was said, the blessings that Jacob put on each tribe. He said, here, I'm going to show you what's going to befall you in the last days. He gave each tribe a characteristic of its own. So now, like we were saying at camp, you know, for that one guy that couldn't get it, you know, this is how we know who the tribes are, okay?
And then he said he's Issachar, he's
You're right.
skin black.
I asked him what he was. He said, I'm everything. What does that mean? Okay? Don't make no sense. But anyway, you want to close out, or?
All right, we can close out, man.
Yep. All right. With that, hopefully this was edifying. You know, we want to give all praise, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rakakadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders, a great millstone for teaching this truth according to the Bible. We say Shalom and Abba Babal.